welcome everybody. I'm Ginny Grenham, and I am a past member of the board of the Book Foundation from the early days in the Book Foundation, and what a success. What a great weekend this has turned out to be. Yeah. I mean, thank you so much to Mary Haft, Sarah DeVello, Tim Ehrenberg, Wendy Hudson. I mean, there's a whole crew, and it's just really it's turned into just an amazing weekend. So I'm very grateful to be here, and I was grateful to be asked to introduce two of the speakers we have today. I love them both. Kate Brosnan, some of you may know from the island. Kate is also, she co-founded the Nantucket Project, which is a big global celebration that we've had every year in September. And Kate was also at Plum TV. She was a general manager and host of Emmy Award-winning Plum TV. She's interviewed presidents, prime ministers. The people that she's brought to the Nantucket Project are amazing. Authors, poets, I think a couple dictators maybe, but like the span of humanity. She was also on the board in the early days of the Book Foundation, and this weekend, Jill Karp, thank you, I didn't see you there, thank you. Absolutely, and one of the founding members and host of so many of these activities, which I'm so grateful for. She was the one who got me involved in the Book Foundation, which I will always be grateful for. So Kate is going to interview Molly, and Kate is one of the most authentic and real people I know. I mean, she is just the real deal, and I couldn't have a better match than her with Molly, who is also one of the most authentic people I know. And yeah, it's just, Molly is a political analyst. She's a writer, journalist. She's a Vanity Fair special correspondent. She's got a great podcast, Fast Politics. You usually see me walking around with a sweatshirt that says Fast Politics. It's a great podcast. And she's on CNN, MSNBC, Morning Joe. Instagram, you'll see endless political updates along with many pictures of dogs. And she's just become, I don't know, she's just so well known now, and she's got this incredible book. Her book is How to Lose Your Mother, and it's a painful read, it's a funny read, it's just raw and honest. You know, she writes about her mother and the challenges that go with her dementia, and at the same time, her husband was diagnosed with cancer, and she's raising 3 kids, and it's just a really honest journey. I was lucky enough to know Molly during this period, and we would talk a lot, and you'll find yourself in the book feeling like you're standing on the corner of Fifth Avenue and whatever those streets are, and experiencing this kind of trauma and pain. But you'll feel like you're there too. Bringing together these two humans is about as real as it gets. So I'm honored to introduce both of them.
Hi. What a nice introduction. Can you guys wait?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Good. We're
yes.
good.
Okay, good. Amazing.
We're both enthroned.
What I know. This is very fancy.
Right.
And what a nice introduction from Ginny. Thank you, Ginny.
She's the best. Ginny is
love
the best.
Ginny.
I know. Maybe we should just talk about Ginny.
Yes, we're going to talk about. So I'm so delighted to get to be here, and I'm so excited to be a part of this book festival. It's just great.
Well, we are really excited to have you here. The book blew me away. You talk about how your family has a tradition of like cutting their wrist and bleeding all over the page. And, but it feels that way when you read it because it's so honest. Your mom, Erica Jong, wrote Fear of Flying in 1973.
Yeah.
And really got labeled as a feminist.
Yeah.
You talk about that in like a name only.
Well, it's funny because I was being interviewed on CBS, not on the show I wanted, but on a good show. I really wanted the Sunday show, and I didn't get the Sunday show. And then I didn't get the day show. I got like CBS Plus, but it's okay. And I've like emotionally recovered. But in it, they found this clip of my mom in 1974 on 60 Minutes, maybe 60 Minutes, yeah, with Henry Miller, who was one of her mentors, and who I hope she never slept with. I was like, Mom, I put it together recently. I was like, did you sleep with Henry? And she was like, no. And I was like, there's no way to know if that's true or not. But in this, she's talking about fear of flying, and you realize that she's trying to defend herself against being labeled the happy hooker. Because as she's talking, she's saying, well, it's not about multiple partner. You realize that this woman had been thought of as Will Chamberlain. She really had. And she was just trying to reclaim her academic roots and to be taken seriously as someone, like, it's funny because my whole growing up, we'd see like Norman Mailer won a Pulitzer Prize and was on the cover of every magazine, and Philip Roth, these people, my mom, all she wanted was to matter like those guys. And it turns out nobody reads Philip Roth anymore. Nobody even remembers who Norman Mailer is. The irony is just so rich.
And the fame was really her addiction in many ways.
I would say, first of all, I do have a whole thesis that fame is the closest thing we have to magic in American life, right? It changes the way people treat you. It changes the way you react to the world. It's just magic. Now, is it good magic? Is it bad magic? That I can't answer, but I do believe that to be true. And so when my mom got it, and I saw this with my grandfather too, and I didn't know her before she was famous. I actually was talking to someone who is married to someone famous, and I said, like, did you see it turn the person? Like, did you see them, like, because I have a whole theory about it, like, that it makes people a little crazy. And I'm always like, you never want to get that. And for my grandfather, he had been famous, my grandfather Howard Fast had been famous during the McCarthy period when he'd been put in jail. By the way, I just want to add an aside to this. Okay. So I have been I write these political pieces, and I said to my brother, I'm really worried that Trump's going to put me in jail. And he goes, you better wish Donald Trump puts you in jail. He was like, Grandpa's career went next level when he was put in jail. He was like, your jail would be the best thing to ever happen to you. And I was like, no, Ben. I was like, and you should not want me to go to jail either.
I don't want you to go to jail.
Nobody wants to go to jail.
So because we could go.
Yes, I could really, I probably will.
And so will I.
Yeah.
So this is going to be.
Yeah.
The book starts with this. There's one quote in it where you say, my mother's famous line was the zipless F, fill in the blank, and try being the daughter of, and what would your line be about me, kind of thing. Yeah. Talk to me about that, the kind of the sexual quality of it, and as a young woman growing up with that, with your mom as Erica Jong. I mean, how did it?
So fundamentally the worst thing about being the daughter of Erica Jong is people are like, did your mother talk to you about sex? And I would say, like, and my mom would always try to talk to me about sex. And I would be like, my whole life is the talk. Please do not talk to me about sex. I know about, and I'd be like 17 and she'd be like, do you want to talk about sex? And I'd be like, no, I said to I got married when I was 23. And I said to my husband, I'm very sorry, but you're going to see my mother naked. And I said, I'm sorry, it's going to happen to you. And he is like from Connecticut. So he was like,
Oh.
right. He was like, you're kidding, right? And I was like, no, I'm not kidding.
But the growing ups in all, you do, and I have to say, this book is heartbreaking and funny and raw. You do talk about your mom saying that to others that you were her greatest accomplishment.
Yes.
And yet you didn't believe her.
Look, this is the question of like what, it's impossible to know. I think she was an amazing mother for how she was, remember, she was born in 1942 and she was asked to be this feminist icon. She born into a world where a woman could not have a bank account, right? You couldn't have your own bank account. So then she is supposed to get up there and be this sort of icon of free love and feminism and activism, and I don't think she was really prepared for it. And she wanted to have a kid. I had this grandmother who was really, really mean. I mean, I loved her because she was funny, but she was so mean. And she, in her head, she felt that that having children had really ruined her career. And not maybe being a bad painter, right? She had wanted to be a famous painter, but she felt that the kids were standing in the way of it. And so I think it gave my mother, it was very hard for her. I think she worried that that being a mother might derail her career, which it turns out it kind of does. I mean, I have 3 kids, and it's very hard to do both things at the same time.
Well, I love when you say that your mom thought you were a total genius.
Yes, she did.
She thought
just a genius.
You were, and yet 3rd grade didn't work out so good for you.
So I was counseled out of 3rd grade because I could not read. I was really dyslexic. And my mother would be like, she's a genius. And my dad would be like, And even the best thing is my mother, I am very out of tone, I'm tone deaf. And so whenever at school I would have to do any singing stuff, my mother would be like, she's amazing. And my dad, and they were not married, they were in the middle of an epic divorce. But years later, my dad was like, you can be bad at this. It's okay. And so no, my mother had, and in fact, that's one of the things I talk about, why I think she was in many ways a great mother for me, was I don't think I would be here had I had a mother who was normal, right? Who had said, hey, you're not so good at singing. I had this mom who was like, you are a genius. So one of the things with my business is you take a lot of rejection, right? You write pieces, people say no. You rewrite pieces, they say no, absolutely not. You write a book, they don't want to sell. At every point, it's just a lot of rejection. You try to get a governor on the podcast, the governor says, no, I only want to be on this other podcast. It's just a lot of rejection. And when I had to sort of restart my career after I had all these children in my 30s, I had to really take just a ton of rejection. And I was able to say, I can do this, despite all evidence to the contrary. And so I feel like I want my message to be that you can actually do the things that you don't think you can do.
It's a powerful message. And the reason that the year of which this book takes place is really, I don't know how you did it. 3 children, husband gets diagnosed, pancreatic cancer, mom's going through dementia.
Yeah.
you're making a decision to put her in a home because it's getting bad.
It's actually worse than that. So my mom and my stepfather, I was
You're
like,
making
wait.
like I didn't read the book,
Right,
Molly.
but I'm just adding a few. I want to really get all of the bad stuff first. So
Okay.
mom and stepfather, he has Parkinson's, she has dementia. He tips into Parkinsonian's dementia. So all of a sudden, he doesn't make any sense. And he's made sense this whole time. And then he's like, I'm just going to go upstairs to my bedroom. And I'm like, you're in an apartment. Like all of a sudden, so that's the two of them. Then my husband, they find a mass on his pancreas. It turns out to be this better, less scary cancer, still scary. And then it's in his liver, and And then my stepfather's sister dies, who's our aunt. And then as my husband's having the second surgery, his father falls, breaks his whatever, something, and then ends up in a coma. And we can't decide whether to pull the plug. So, and it becomes this like, but the reason I wrote this book was because, two reasons. One was because as it was happening, you know, I've always like wanted to protect normal people. So like that's why my kids don't really end up in this book. And my aunt was complaining. She was like, you know, your grandfather messed me up too. And I was like, I am aware, but I didn't put you in the book. You know, so I tried to sort of, but when my husband got this mass on his pancreas, I was like, you going in the book, I'm sorry. I have to write about this. And he knew it was coming, so it was okay. But you know, I wanted to write about this because I wanted people to see that you can get through it. And that was why I wrote about it, because I have a lot of friends who I would run into in my neighborhood who would be like, I'm here, we're putting my mother on Medicaid because she can't afford her apartment and we can't afford the aids. And, you know, so I just, that's why I wanted to write this book, because I saw a lot of people going through this.
The interesting part for me in reading was your lack of resentment. It was, you were doing, you know, there didn't seem to be, you were just showing up. You were saying, I'm a bad daughter for putting my mother in the nursing home.
Yeah,
but I didn't get a hint of like deep resentment towards any of what was going on.
You know, one of the things I did was that I was like very careful not to, you know, I was very careful with my mental health. So I didn't, you know, I would do as much as I could do, but I wouldn't do more. So I would, you know, if I needed to go to bed at 5 o'clock, if I needed to go watch TV for 4 hours, if I needed to, you know, eat frozen yogurt for dinner or ice cream, mostly ice cream. I don't eat frozen yogurt.
I love that about Molly.
Yeah.
We have that in common.
But just like, I mean, I do have 300 cholesterol, which I think is really good. No, I don't think it's good, right? It's not good. But, you know, I would just take care. I wouldn't run myself. Like, I would just be like, I'm going to see you for, you know, an hour. I'm going to see, you know, I didn't make it. I sort of was able to keep things as I knew I needed to protect my sanity. So I didn't.
And 3 children.
Yeah.
Mothering 3 children on top of that. I mean, I would have been.
Well, so I told all the kids, I was like, you can't tell anyone. I was like, because, you know, I'm on television, people know me, people know your dad, you have friends, so you can't tell anyone. So I did this whole thing, and my daughter, who is probably going to be mad, so don't tell her I said this, said to me, can I tell my shrink? And I was like, ooh, that was a bad parenting moment, right? Like, I should have specified that she could tell her shrink. So I don't think it was without its, I think it was a little traumatic for them. But what I tried to do was teenagers tend to be narcissistic, thank God. So I would be like, please stay in college. Don't come home for surgeries. Please try to stay as normal as possible. We have this handled. Don't, you know, just do your life. Like, that's what's important right now. So in some ways, teenagers, that's not a terrible age to go through something like this, because you can sort of, I mean, I think it was hard, but we just tried to keep everything as normal as possible for them.
Molly, talk about also your sobriety and getting sober at such a young age. And how that was part of your self-care and having a community that could kind of
So it's funny because I was like in an elevator talking to someone about during that year, and I was like, well, I was in Sloan Kettering, and now I'm going to New York Hospital. By the way, Sloan Kettering, that hospital is so fancy. Like I'd be like, this is amazing. Like you know, I'd be here anytime. And so I was going back and forth between Sloan Kettering and New York Hospital because I had one in the hospital, and then my stepfather, because he had this dementia, they had to have someone because otherwise he'd try to get out of the bed. I mean, this, by the way, this is happening to everyone. This is not some like special problem that I had. Like, you know, is there anyone in this room who hasn't been through this or some variation of this? Which is why it's baffling to me that that every book isn't about this. Because like this is, I'm serious.
Right.
And
We all have to face these decisions. Yeah.
I mean, and I was like, this is so hard, and I have like a ton of people helping me. And I can't imagine how hard it is to do this with like very little money or with, I mean, just, you know, or in like some rural area where you don't have doctors. I mean, I just couldn't believe how hard it was. But I was in an elevator and I was saying, well, you know, we had this thing where like my husband's father finally dies. It's like this horrible, they don't want to pull the siblings are agreed that they don't want to pull the plug. They just want to keep him alive. And I'm thinking this is insane. And it's just so, but you know, what was very interesting was we got very into like, what does it mean to die? You know, how do you want to die? How do you want to, you know, what does that look like? And I don't know how, I mean, it is such an important thing that we just don't talk about so much for obvious reasons, because it's the end, and nobody likes that. But you know, we just had this. It was very tough, and I was in this elevator. I'm talking to this woman, and she said, "How are you doing this?" And I really, like, without even talking, I was like, "I've been sober since I was 19. I can do it. You know, I know how to do stuff." And so the reason why I talk about getting sober at 19 and being sober 27 years is not because I'm so great by any stretch of the imagination. It's
But
because
you are pretty great, am I?
well,
Okay.
but it's because the story doesn't make sense unless you know that I'm sober. Because the being able to manage all this stuff doesn't make any sense. And also because I think when I talk, I did not know you could get sober at 19 and stay sober. And I needed to see people who had done it. And we tend only to see when things have gone wrong. We see like celebrities who tried to get sober and then went out and died. We don't see like the boring story of the person who stays sober and has a life. And so I wanted to do that. And because I had this forward-facing career, I just felt that it was okay, whatever. I made that decision like in 2000, and I'm glad I did it, but I know it's not for most people, but for me, I felt like talking about alcoholism and destigmatizing that you can be an alcoholic, that it's a physical problem and not a mental, or it's a physical ailment and not you know, like it's nothing to be ashamed of. And that's what I wanted to say, was like, you can get sober and stay sober, so. Thank you. I hope that was, thank you.
Yeah, I think it is. There's through line throughout the story that you had a pathway, you had steps to get you from one point to the other, which was really powerful. Molly, how is your mother now, and is she aware of this and of the book?
Yeah.
And how do you think that she would react to it?
Well, so she would be delighted. If Erica Jong were regular Erica Jong, she would be delighted. Even if there was bad stuff in there, she'd be like, because remember, the goal here is the legacy. Okay. This is not you or me. I mean, I actually have become sort of like that too. But, you know, normal people don't care about legacy the same way that, right, you know, there's a sort of pathological need for legacy. So, she was always like, you will write about me and da-da-da. You know, she wanted that. And I actually feel like when you come from a family tradition like that, like I'll tell my daughter is the writer in our family, and I'm like, go for it, you know. But she can't read. She sort of just doesn't have a short-term memory anymore. So the woman from the New York Times who wrote this piece, who's very smart, Alexandra Alter, and writes about publishing and reads a lot of stuff, said, I'd like to call her to ask her about the book. And all of a sudden, I had this like larger ethical questions of calling someone who can't sign a check, right? Like, is it okay? Is it not okay? And then I'm involved in it, right? So what is my ethical responsibility to her? And I am her literary executor and her power of attorney, right? So what does that mean? And I decided, like, my whole thing with her has been just for her to do whatever's fun. Like, she's got dementia. She's in a nursing home. So my goal for her is to have as much fun as possible. So I thought, what would be fun for her? And I thought, she would love to talk to the New York Times. So I said to the aide, I said, have her talk to the New York Times. So I talked to him afterwards, and he said she loved being interviewed by the New York Times. And I said, I would hope she had. And so I had no idea what she was going to say. And honestly, I thought, whatever she says is fine. And she was very nice about the book. She said she hasn't given me a copy, but I plan to buy it, which was very nice. Everyone should buy it. I have no qualms about mom buying it. And then, and then later on, like yesterday or the day before, I have no idea what day it is, I called her because I've been on this book tour, and I said, Mom, it's a New York Times bestseller. And I knew all I wanted was to be a New York Times bestseller. I mean, this is like, for me, this is it. It's number 6 on the combined list. So I know, right? It was all I cared about. I was like, they told me I was taping the podcast, I was interviewing someone, and my editor called me because it comes out Wednesday, in case you're wondering, between 4 and 5. So all day, I had been like, it's not going to make it. It had been on the Amazon list, but it had never gotten over, whatever. It doesn't, you guys don't care. But so she calls me in the middle of it, and she's like, number 6 on the combined. And I'm like, screaming. The producer, I have a microphone on, so he is like, so I called her and I said, Mom, New York Times, we're on the New York Times bestseller list. And I don't think she totally understood what it meant, so that made me sad. But then I was like, the Erica Jong movie is happening, Mom. And she was like, ooh, the Erica Jong movie. So, I mean, let's just hope the Erica Jong movie happens.
Let's hope. I also love in the books where her toasts.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and your husband, Matt, didn't believe you. That like, well, let her go and take, any opportunity, any wedding, anything, what she was invited to or not. Mm-hmm. Usually you're invited to do the toast.
Yeah.
I
actually didn't know that you invited people to do toasts until I was an adult. I just assumed, because like anytime we go anywhere, so I met my husband when I was 23, and we were at this wedding, and we went to a wedding like a year later, and we're at this wedding, and I said, my mom is going to make a toast, and it's going to be really horrible. And he was like, no, you're so neurotic. And I said, no, she's an alcoholic. She's going to make a toast. It's going to be horrible. And he said, no, she's very successful. And by the end of the book, she's making toasts, and he is like, needs to go to an Al-Anon meeting. Like he can't even, he's like he comes to me during a Passover, and he goes, she's drinking again. And I said, yeah, that's what she does. And he goes, I can't take it. This family is making me crazy. So, I mean, there's a lot in this book about what it's like to have parents get older and have teenage children. But there's also a lot in this book about like what it's like to marry into a family. Because I married into this family where I thought they were super normal. And then my husband and his sister refused to pull the plug on their father for like 3 months. And he says to me, I say, well, the doctor says, I said, the hospital is starting ethics proceedings against you guys. I think you should. And he says, no, the doctor's Canadian. And I said, I don't understand what that means. And he's like, Canadians, they really, they're not, Canadian healthcare. So we had, really got to see how crazy everyone, even the sanest, my message is even the sanest people can be completely crazy around this.
But I think every family has these kind of the crazy, I mean, I think we spend time just trying to keep them more quiet or don't go out in public with them often and things like that, right?
Yes, and it's funny because Peter Sagal interviewed me, and in Chicago, which was either 3 or 4 days ago or last week. And when he was interviewing me, he's like, there's a lot of personal stuff in this book. And he's like, it's really personal. And I was like, thanks. He's like, usually in novels, people aren't this personal unless it's a novel where everyone pretends that the people aren't really the people.
That's the best thing about this book, right? I mean, it's the point of the book, right?
Well, I feel like if you're going to spend $26 on me, which is like quite a lot of,
Give it to them, Molly.
Right. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to really tell you exactly what happened. And I just think like, I did come from this literary tradition. Like my mom always said, you sit down at the computer and you open a vein. But I also think like we are in a moment that is just not great. And the only way out of it is really like this honesty and transparency and compassion and these kind of connection with each other, like the humanity of it. And I really feel like that.
How did you get into the political discussion of all of this? Was that something that was always, just seemed not, you started with fiction? Tell me about the politics.
I did. So my grandfather, Howard Fast, who was this communist who went to jail.
But you're hoping to follow
do we only
in
have
his
5 minutes?
footsteps.
5 minutes? 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
5 minutes?
Oh, we're just getting going.
But the clock is not the right clock. Oh, 5 minutes until we go to questions. Okay. 5 minutes. So we by the way, everyone explained this to us before, but I was not paying attention.
And I never pay attention.
Yeah. I was just distracted.
I said to you, Molly, you're in charge.
Oh, I was delighted because I was like, I'm going to be in charge anyway. Sorry. People try to interview me. It's so bad. I'm just like...
Oh, it was delightful to interview you.
Yeah, but I don't answer any of the questions. I learned that from politicians.
You get to them at the end. You get to them
Sometimes not. I interview these politicians and I'll be like, you're not going to answer my question anyway, so I should just ask something really weird so that maybe they'll get you off guard and you'll say something. So political stuff, I came from a tradition of, my grandfather wrote these very didactic novels about communism. He's very into communism. He won the Stalin Peace Prize. I swear to God, the last year that Stalin himself awarded it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And my dad was in his garage in Palm Springs, and he found it. And he was like, oh my God, and he dropped it, and now we can't find it. So I was hoping to find it so we could sell it. But
worth a lot of money.
I don't know. None of that stuff is ever worth anything. But so my grandfather came from this very didactic, and he used to write political columns, and my mother did too. So I always thought you could write novels and political columns. I don't really think anymore that you kind of have to pick a lane, which is fine. I never really connected with novels. I always thought you were supposed to just write what happened and put it in a novel. So memoir makes much more sense for me. But I don't know that I'll ever write another memoir. I mean, maybe I will. Maybe I'll have another bad year. No. But I really like writing about politics because I don't, if you ask me like how much about politics do you guys want? Oh, okay, all right, we'll do it. If you ask me sort of how I'm using the word radicalized, but I'm obviously not very radical. But I want to use it because I want it to explain the moment that I felt that I was needed. And it was in 2015 when I thought everything was going to be fine. We'd have Mitt Romney. Worst comes to worst, we have Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is, it's fine.
Sounds like heaven right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that was the moment. Like, when I saw that things were just going off the rails. And I feel very grateful that I get to write about politics, and I feel like my responsibility is to listen to voices that don't necessarily get elevated the same way. Like, there's a lot of, and I mean this, I have two. Whoops. I have two sons. I'm married to a white guy, but white guys do tend to dominate the conversation when it comes to politics. And God bless them. But I try to listen to other voices too. And, I really saw this during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where there were just, there are a lot of people in this country, and we need to talk to all of them.
And so writing weekly for Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
Every morning on
no.
Morning Joe? No?
No, not every morning. I go 2 times a week. I'd go more if they want me. Oh, thank you. Tell Alex. Be like Alex. You should have Molly on more. And I do that. I write my column. I write my column like obsessively every week. And my editor was like, please don't. Like a couple weeks ago, he's like, you write 52 columns a year. You can take this week off. But I do write every week. And then I sometimes write other stuff too. But, it's a very interesting time. It's a very scary time, I think. And I also think, like, I think it's a very important time,
And are you hopeful? What's going to happen here, Molly?
So my podcast producer is always like, never ask people what's going to happen. Sorry, but I'll tell you what's going to happen.
I knew you would.
Yeah, yes, because it's me.
Molly, tell us what's going to happen.
So what's going to happen is we're all going to be we're going to take care of each other. We're going to protect our norms and institutions. We're going to do things like peaceful protests, peacefully. We're going to embrace this, peaceful kind of, here's what I honestly think. I think that that Democrats will win the midterms. But here's what I really think is, like, we're in a room right now with lots of very smart people, right, who care. And my message to you is, you are the ones we've been waiting for, okay? You guys should run for office. You guys should make I was you a decade ago, being like, what can I do? And there are a million things you can do. And there are a million, there are State House, State Senate, Congress. Congress, like the people who are in Congress right now, even on the Democratic side, some of them not so great. Like, go in there. If you're mad, like, we need you. You are the ones we've been waiting for. Like, there is no reason why it should not be you. And especially, really think about it. There are all of these organizations that have sprung up since 2016. I'm thinking of Run for Something. I'm thinking of Indivisible. These people will help you run for office. And if you are a woman, you need to be asked to run for office like 15 times more than a man, okay? So if you're even thinking about it, you should be doing it. And there is no reason why you should not be out there running for office and be in the political discourse, because the people who are in it right now are not covering themselves with glory. Sorry.
Powerful.
And of course, there are exceptions like Governor Maura Healey, who's wonderful. And there are a lot of wonderful people. Okay, we have to go to questions because they're going to kill us.
I know. Questions.
Hey, Molly. I just want to say I'm going to fanboy for a second. It's a theme sort of running through today, but the thing that I admire so much about you is you are freaking fearless, and your fearlessness comes through in your nonfiction. In your memoir, and it certainly comes through in your political presence, which is cut through a lot of signal, cut through a lot of noise, and it's just so important, and I just want to laud you for that first. But then I want to ask you a question that I tried to ask to Bob Woodward earlier, which is this, and it's, I was wondering, given that you're a child of the late 70s,
Very late, very
very late, but very late.
Very late.
It's closer to the 80s.
Yeah, really the 80s. Yeah.
But which of the administrations previous to this one do you feel like built the runway for the current moment, if you will?
Yeah. So, I mean, I just read Sam Tenenhouse's incredible biography of William F. Buckley Jr., which you should all read, even though it's 1,000 pages. Since I'm on a book tour, I was just like, oh, I can read. And it really talks about how this was always, I mean, one of the big mistakes we made in 2016, I think, and I made this mistake too, was the belief that Trumpism was not who we are, that there is no deep-seated, there's a lot of dark history in this country, right? Of treating people badly, of not being, generous to our neighbors. So I do think that this has always been a through line, and, how it sort of sprung up again in such a profound and scary way. Rush Limbaugh, the door was always open to this. So, I think, certainly Rush Limbaugh, certainly the Murdochs. I mean, this is how we got here, but the question is how we get out of here.
Thank you, Molly. What news sources do you trust?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, and this is a really scary moment for that. So I trust reporting in, you notice how I said reporting. I trust opinion, but I mostly read reporting. I'll read opinion because it's like what I do, but I don't need somebody to tell me what to think. I mean, I don't tell people what to think, but it's a little, I don't know, whatever. I'm competitive, maybe. So, maybe a little bit. So, reporting-wise, I read the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, all have beyond incredible reporting. You cannot go wrong with any three of those outlets. ProPublica does amazing, amazing stuff. If you want to support, like ProPublica, they do just incredible work, and they do really good work on the local level too, which I think is really important. I also read, I think, and I work at a Condé Nast publication, but the New Yorker does amazing stuff. We do good stuff at Vanity Fair. I read The Economist. I love The Economist. I read, what else do I read? I read Bloomberg. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. The question is, how do you get there, right? And that is one of the problems with social media. I also am just really careful about breaking news and not getting involved in breaking news until it's already clear what's going on. Oh.
Your recovery story. I'm in recovery myself, and it's been life-changing. Yeah. And I also want to ask you how the book is affecting your kids.
Oh, that's a good question. So it's only out for like a week. My daughter read it right away when it was like a PDF that I texted people, and she read it. My husband didn't read it right away, and the boys have not read it, and they may not. I think they're happy. We try to keep things as normal as possible. My kids are like, if I can get them restaurant reservations, they're very impressed. So restaurant reservations, like a big win, Ooh, the Polo Bar. Oh, Mom's not all bad. But I try to be really careful about, I don't think they care particularly. I don't think they're so interested in me, which is good. And they often are like right now, because I'm on this book tour, they're so mad at me because I've been away. So like every time I call, they're like, and I'm gonna need this and and so, but that's good. Good for them, we can maybe one more question or two more questions, or we'll just call on people.
Hi, can I? Hi, first of all, you should be a stand-up comedian. You are so funny.
Thank
So
you.
do the politics
Thank
and
you.
everything, but look, I have to ask you.
Yeah.
Did your husband see your mother naked?
Yes. Oh my God. And I actually asked him. I was like, did you? And he was like, oh my God, did I ever? Yes, he did. He did. This poor man. He's really been through it. He got cancer. I wrote about it. But he's a very good
How's he
sport.
doing?
He's doing okay. You know, when the book came out, he was like, he definitely was not. This was not his comfort zone. Like, I really pushed it with the whole. So when the book came out, he was like, though he's very excited about being on the New York Times bestseller list. So that I feel like and he's like, are you going to earn out the advance? So I was like, well, does it make it okay that I wrote about you? So he's conflicted. I mean, this is always like very conflicting, right? You can have multiple, feelings about one thing. So he has this very slow cancer, and that's very, very good. It's not pancreatic cancer. It's called neuroendocrine cancer. And he's done, he's on this very good, Sloan Kettering has this very good. Now, it may not be covered by insurance anymore, which is really scary. But he has this I think he has a pretty good outlook. And what was so interesting about having cancer, and we went through this period, you'll read in the book, hopefully, if you read the book. You actually don't have to read the book. You just have to buy it.
No, you have to read the book.
You just have to buy the book.
No.
You don't have to read the book, right? It's nobody's business if you read the book. You buy the book, but
you're cheating yourself.
Yes, well, it's all right. You can use it it's very pretty too. But I think it's very tough. I think having cancer is very tough. But so many Americans, a third of us will get cancer. Just crazy. So this is, living in this state is the thing. So we're out of time. Thank you.